Hello, relative clauses 2 for today. In the last lesson, we talked about how we translate the relative clauses. So we were putting the noun into the box, and we put a little parenthesis around the sentence that follows, right? So if this happens, the translation is something like this, right? 최근에 지어진 공원. So we talked about this, the relative clause 1, the lesson 1, and today we're gonna talk about, of course, these two, right? So mainly we're gonna talk about which one is right today. So in English, when we're connecting a sentence to the noun, we need something like this, but according to the situation. Okay, you need to come up with the right relative according to the situation. And there are many selections here: which, where, that, when, how, why, something like that, right? So there are many things that could fall in this slot. So you need to know well about how this goes. Okay, let's get right to it. So which one is the correct answer here? The correct answer is which, right? So why do we have to say which in here? We're going to talk about that with the pictures below. We have 3 pictures below. The 3 pictures represent the 3 types of relative. The 3 types of situations, you have to use the relatives differently. Okay, so the first situation is like this. The situation is someone running in the playground, right? So what we are going to say here is that, let's say this is Sally. So we are gonna say here is 셀리가 달리고 있는 공원. I mean, not 공원, 놀이터. Right? So here, as we can see, we have a noun and the sentence is connected to this noun, right? So in English, we say the noun first and then we say the sentence. And we need something to connect here, right? So here we sometimes put that, sometimes which, sometimes where, something like that, right? Let's come up with the rest of the sentence first. So Sally is running. This is the sentence, right? Even without this connecting part, you can understand what it means actually, right? The playground, Sally is running. 셀리가 달리고 있는 놀이터. But if you omit this, if you leave this empty, it's ungrammatical, so you need something here to connect these two. So what do we use? What do we write here? What do we say here? Is it which, that, where? What do you think? So here I want you to focus on the situation here. If you look at the situation, the playground is actually a background, right? and Sally is in the situation, in the background, right? So the playground is a big background, and Sally is just a small person that is in the background, in the playground, right? So in this type of situation, you say where, because where means the place, right? So the relative types that falls into this category are where or when. So of course, where means the place and when means the time. Okay, and the situation looks like this. Okay, don't get confused though, because even if the noun means the place, it doesn't have to have where. Sometimes we're going to talk about it in the next picture. Okay, all right, let's move on. Now we have the next picture. Here, Sally, she's still Sally. Sally is actually drawing the playground, right? Sally is drawing the playground. So what we want to say here is 셀리가 그리고 있는 놀이터. So here, as you can see, we have a noun and the sentence that is connected to the noun, right? And in English, we say the noun first, and we need something to connect the sentence to the noun and the actual sentence. Let's come up with the sentence first. Sally is drawing, right? So actually, we don't really need this, I think, right? So the playground, Sally is drawing. Even with this, we can understand what it means. 셀리가 그리고 있는 놀이터, right? But as I said it earlier, if you leave this empty, the sentence is ungrammatical, so you need to put something here. So what do we put here? Which, that, where, when. What do you want to put? What do you think? So the first thing that comes to your mind is probably where, because the playground is a place, right? So you want to put where here, but it is wrong. You need to put which here, because as I said earlier, the situation matters, okay? At this time, the playground is just a thing, right? That Sally is doing something to the thing, right? So Sally is doing something to the thing directly. Sally is doing something with this playground. She's actually drawing the playground, right? So at this time, so in this type of situation, you say which, okay? Which. You don't say where, because if you want to say where, Sally need to be in the playground. Do you see the difference? At this time, Sally is drawing the playground, so you cannot say where. Instead, you have to say which, okay? So this type of relatives are which if the noun is a thing, and who if the noun is a person, and that could work both way. right? These type of things fall into this category. Okay, let's move on. And sometimes you can have a situation like this, right? So what I want to say here is 닫혀 있는 놀이터. So here the noun that goes into the box is 놀이터, and the sentence that is connected to the noun is 닫혀 있는. In English, we say the noun first, and then we connect the sentence after, and we need something to connect these two. Right? So let's come up with the sentence first. 닫혀 있다 is closed, right? So we need something here. What do you think should fall into this slot? What do you think? So the first thing that comes to your mind might be where again. But as you can guess, it might be wrong, right? So if the noun is a place, you have to say where. That is a wrong rule, right? There is no rule like that, all right? So some people might not know this, but there are no rules like that. And the rule is, like I said, you have to look into the situation where it's wrong. The situation here is the playground itself is something, right? 닫혀 있는 놀이터 means 놀이터가 닫혀 있다. So the playground itself is doing something. So in this type of situation, you also say which. So in this category fall which if it's a thing, who if it's a person, that works both way. Okay, so like I said, there are 3 types of situations to decide what we should put in this connecting part as relative, right? So there are 3 situations, mainly 3 situations. So if you wanna say this in Korean, where is 관계부사? So 관계부사 happens in this type of situation, right? The person should be in the situation. And this type is called 목적격, right? 목적격. So 목적격 is used in this type of situation where a person or a thing is doing something to the noun, right? Doing something to the noun. At this time, it is drawing the playground, right? So it is 목적격. The last situation is called 주격. 주격 is the playground itself is doing something. So it is 주어. 놀이터가 주어. At this time, the playground is the subject. It is doing something. It itself is doing something. So you should use 주격. Okay? So this is why there are many 격 and 관계부사 and something like that in English. Because in English, we have to differentiate the situation and we need to use the relatives accordingly. That's very difficult, right? Okay, let's move on and let's try to apply this to the actual questions. We're gonna do just 2 questions here. Let's do this and let's do this. Before we do that, let's come back to the first part of this lesson. I said this, right? The park which where has recently been built. So in this bit, I said which is the correct one. So do you know why which is correct one now? Do you see the difference? So if you start with the park which, the situation would be this one or this one. Okay, let's say where situation is situation first, situation 1, and 목적격 is second, 2, and 주격 is third, 3. So here, what kind of situation do you think this is? 최근에 지어진 공원. Do we do something in the park? 최근에 지어진 공원. Or are we doing something to the park? Or the park itself is doing something? What do you think? Yes, at this time, the park itself is doing something as a subject. In this situation, 공원 is actually 주어, right? So the park which where has recently been built falls into the third category, right? 공원 itself has been built, right? So this one is correct. Okay, it's very difficult. Let's move on to the questions. Okay. Actually, this one is the same question as I did earlier. Let's do this one then. So here is the sentence that goes, we remember the day when which we first met. Okay, so as I said it earlier, don't do this. The day is time, so let's pick when. Let's move on. That's not the correct way. Okay, so even if the noun is time, it could be which and when according to the situation. So you need to look into the situation. Okay, right? So just because the day means time, it doesn't always have to be when. Okay, all right. So let's look into the situation here. The noun is the day. So 2 different things can happen here. Let's say the day is 10th, maybe 10th May 10th. So in this day, okay, the first situation could be in this day, some person could do something, right? So in this type of situation, we have to say where or when. But we are talking about days, so we should use when in this type of situation. That's type 1 here, right? And if it is which, okay, it could be type 2 or 3, but in this sentence, it should be 2 if it is which. So if it is 2, the picture that should come into your mind should look like this. Okay. So if it is which, that means the person is doing something with the day. Okay. So either the person could move the day, remove the day, or plan the day, whatever it is. So the person is doing something directly to the day. It's very difficult, right? So here, if you look at the sentence again, the day when we first met means 우리가 처음 만났던 날. So what situation are we here? So in the day we first met, this is the first situation, or we are doing something to the day, or we are meeting the day. Did we meet the day, or did we meet in the day? Yes, it's very difficult, right? So we met in the day. So something happened in the day, right? We were in the situation, so we have to say when. Okay? All right, let's move on. So this is the last question we're gonna do. So India is the country which I studied. So guess the answer first on your own. Okay, like the question above, let's talk about just two situations here. If it is where, or if it is which. Okay, let's try and translate this first. 내가 공부했던 나라. This is the translation, right? 내가 공부했던 나라. So if the answer is where, the picture would look like this, right? India. Does India look like this? Might be. So if I studied in India, I would say the country where I studied, right? So if I studied in India, we should use where. How about if which is the correct answer? What's the picture that comes to your mind? So if which is the correct answer, it would look like this. So this is a book about India. It could be history, geography, whatever it is. So if you're saying the country which I studied, so if you say which, so it would look like this, because I studied the country, right? I did direct thing to the country. So if we say which, that means I studied the country. Do you see the difference? Again, if we say where, the person is in the situation, right? And if we say which, the person is doing something with that. Okay? Do you see the difference? Okay, so let's come back here. What's the correct answer here? It's very tricky. Both are right. So it could work either way, right? So it's a funny thing that in Korean, we cannot differentiate these two meanings, right? But in English, we can differentiate between these two meanings. We can actually make a difference between these two. But in Korean, we just say 내가 공부했던 나라. and it could mean either of these two things. So we cannot really know if you don't know the context. That's funny, right? Okay, so it's a very complicated concept, but once you understand these situations, you can actually easily come up with answers with these kind of questions. Okay, so we're just starting as a freshman, so don't worry about how difficult it is for now. We're gonna work on that later. We're gonna work on that more later, so don't worry about it. So that's all for today. Good job, everyone.